He sold over 750 million records. He moonwalked on stages that shook the entire world. Kings and presidents knew his name. Children on every continent grew up hearing his music before they even understood the words. But behind the glittering lights, behind the screaming crowds and the diamond-studded gloves, there was a boy who never truly got to be one. A boy who was handed a microphone before he was handed a childhood. This is not just the story of the king of pop. This is the story of what fame really costs, and what happens when the whole world loves you, but you still feel completely alone. Welcome back to Epoch Stories, the channel where history is not just facts and dates, but real human lives told the way they were meant to be told. If you are new here, you are in exactly the right place. And if you have been here before, thank you for coming back. Let us get into it. Before we go any further, if this kind of storytelling moves you the way it moves us, take 2 seconds right now to hit that like button and subscribe. It helps more people find stories like this one. And trust me, you do not want to miss what is coming next on this channel. Gary, Indiana, 1958. A small steel town in the American Midwest. Smokestacks, modest homes, and a family named Jackson living on a street that barely had enough room to hold all their dreams. Joseph and Catherine Jackson had 9 children packed into a house, so small you could hear everything through the walls. Money was tight. Opportunities were limited. And for a black family in 1950s America, the road ahead was never going to be easy. But inside that house, there was something no amount of poverty could silence. Music. From the moment little Michael could stand, people noticed something was different about him. Not just talented in the way people say about children to be kind. Genuinely, unnervingly different. He would watch his mother play piano and absorb it. He would hear a rhythm once and lock it somewhere deep inside himself. By the age of 5, he was performing in front of crowds. By the age of 8, he was the undeniable heartbeat of a group that his father Joseph had been quietly building for years. The Jackson 5. Joseph Jackson was a man with vision and an iron fist. He had seen the music industry, and he believed his sons had what it took to break into it. So he pushed them. Every single day, rehearsals were not optional. Mistakes were not tolerated. Joseph was known to use a belt when the boys fell short of his expectations, and young Michael, the most sensitive of them all, felt every word of criticism like a cut that never fully healed. But here is what that pressure produced. A performer so precise, so emotionally alive on stage, that audiences could not look away. Michael was not just singing. He was channeling something. Even at 8 years old, people in the crowd would lean forward without realizing it. Something about him pulled you in. In 1968, a chance audition led the Jackson 5 to Motown Records, the most powerful black music label in America. Berry Gordy, the man who built Motown, saw the group perform and signed them almost immediately. He knew what he was looking at. The label released their debut single, I Want You Back, in 1969, and it went straight to number 1. Then came ABC, number 1. Then The Love You Save, number 1. Then I'll Be There, number 1. For consecutive number 1 singles straight out of the gate. America did not just like the Jackson 5. America was obsessed with them. And at the center of it all was this small, wide-eyed boy with a voice that sounded like it belonged to someone twice his age and a stage presence that belonged to no one else on earth. Michael was 10 years old. But fame at that age is not a gift without a cost. While other children his age were riding bikes and getting into harmless trouble, Michael was on tour buses, in recording studios, under stage lights. He watched childhood through a window he was never allowed to open. He once said in an interview that he would see children playing outside and feel a pain in his chest that he could not explain. He was the most famous child in America, and he was deeply, quietly lonely. As the 1970s moved forward, something began to shift inside Michael. The group was still performing, still successful, but Michael's mind had outgrown the frame he had been placed in. He was studying film. He was studying dance with a level of dedication that bordered on obsession. James Brown's footwork, Fred Astaire's effortless grace, the physical comedy of Charlie Chaplin. He was pulling from everywhere, building something in his imagination that the world had not yet seen. In 1979, he stepped slightly out of the group's shadow and collaborated with legendary producer Quincy Jones on a solo album called Off the Wall. It was sophisticated, joyful, soulful, and brilliantly crafted. It sold 7 million copies and produced 4 top 10 hits. Most artists would have celebrated for years. Michael went straight back into the studio. Because Off the Wall, as good as it was not the thing he had been building toward. It was a rehearsal. What came next was the real performance. In 1982, Michael Jackson released Thriller. There is almost no way to explain what Thriller did to the world without sounding like you are exaggerating, because the truth already sounds impossible. It became the best-selling album of all time. It generated 7 top 10 singles from a single record, something that had never been done before. It won a record 8 Grammy Awards in one night. It did not just top charts. It lived on charts for years. But the music was only part of the story. Michael understood something that almost no artist at the time understood. He understood that visuals were just as powerful as sound. So when it came time to create the music video for Thriller, he did not make a music video. He made a 14-minute short film, directed by John Landis, complete with a full horror narrative, professional makeup, and a dance sequence featuring an army of zombies that people still replicate at Halloween parties more than 40 years later. MTV had largely been ignoring black artists at the time. There was an unspoken wall. Michael's team pushed hard to get Billie Jean on the channel, and once it aired, the wall came down and never went back up. Michael did not just cross a line. He erased it. And then came the night that froze time. March 25, 1983. The Motown 25 television special. Michael performed Billie Jean live in front of a television audience of 47 million people. Everything about the performance was controlled, precise, magnetic. And then, toward the end of the song, he did something no one had ever seen before on live television. He glided backward across the stage without his feet appearing to lift from the ground. The moonwalk. The audience erupted. People watching at home leaped off their sofas. Fred Astaire, one of the greatest dancers who ever lived, called Michael the next morning and told him it was the greatest thing he had ever seen a dancer do. Michael was 24 years old, and he had just performed the single most iconic moment in the history of popular music. If you are still with us and this story is hitting you the way we hoped it would, do us a favor right now. Hit that like button and leave a comment below. Tell us what you think made Michael truly different from everyone else. And if you are not subscribed yet, do it now because we are just reaching the part of this story where everything begins to unravel. The mid-1980s brought more. The album Bad in 1987 produced 5 consecutive #1 singles, another record no artist had ever achieved. His world tours sold out stadiums on every continent. He was performing for audiences of hundreds of thousands of people who had waited years just to be in the same space as him. World leaders sought meetings with him. The Pope received him at the Vatican. Nelson Mandela called him a friend. He was not just a musician anymore. He was a global phenomenon unlike anything the modern world had ever produced. But behind the curtain, the pressure was becoming impossible to hold. His appearance had been changing visibly throughout the decade. Surgeries on his nose were obvious. His skin had grown significantly lighter, something he later explained was the result of vitiligo, a condition that destroys skin pigmentation. The tabloids did not care about explanations. They smelled a story and they never let it go. The same world that had placed him on an impossible pedestal began sharpening its knives. By the early 1990s, Michael Jackson had become the most scrutinized human being on the planet. Every move, every appearance, every statement was dissected. He had built Neverland Ranch, a 2,700-acre personal estate in California that was part home and part dreamland, complete with a private zoo, carnival rides, a movie theater, and a train. He named it after the fictional island where children never grow up. That detail alone tells you everything about the wound he was still carrying from his childhood. What followed in 1993 nearly destroyed him completely. Allegations of child abuse surfaced, and the entire world chose a side before a single fact had been established in a courtroom. The criminal investigation was eventually dropped. A civil settlement was reached with no admission of guilt. But the damage to his name was severe. He retreated. He married twice. He had 3 children he fiercely protected from the public eye. He recorded more music. He tried to reclaim his footing. But the world had changed its relationship with him, and he was running out of ground to stand on. In 2005, a second trial consumed him. He was acquitted on all counts. But he left America immediately after and spent years in self-imposed exile across Bahrain, Ireland, and Las Vegas. The man who had once been the center of the world was now living at its edges. In 2009, he announced his return. 50 concerts. The O2 Arena in London. This is it. Tickets sold out in hours. The world exhaled with something close to relief. Michael was coming back. Rehearsal footage from those final weeks shows a man fully locked in. Sharp, focused, electric. Everyone who was there said he looked ready. He looked like himself again. On June 25, 2009, he never made it to the stage. Found unresponsive at his Los Angeles home, the result of a lethal combination of drugs administered by his personal physician. Michael Jackson was pronounced dead at the age of 50. The world did not just mourn. It broke. Decades later, his music still plays in every corner of the planet. His influence lives inside almost every major artist performing today. His story remains one of the most complex, painful, and extraordinary in all of human history. He was a boy who wanted nothing more than to be loved and accepted, who somehow ended up being loved by billions while feeling accepted by almost no one. And that, more than any record he ever broke, is what makes his story one that will never stop being told. Thank you for watching this story on Epoch Stories. If this one moved you, please hit the like button right now and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss a story like this one. And drop a comment below telling us what part of Michael's journey stayed with you the most. Until next time, keep questioning, keep feeling, and never forget that behind every legend, there is always a very human story waiting to be heard.